Welcome to MazanderCast,
a Persian podcast about myth, magic, and mostakhayar. I'm your co-host, Seth.
And I am your co-host, Sarah. We're glad you're here with us for another episode, so get your tea.
Or your coffee. Maybe some snacks while you're at it.
And let the adventure begin. We're continuing the Shahnameh again today. But, Seth, give us a recap. What happened last time?
Jamshid done did some stuff.
Yeah, what'd he do?
He got real high and mighty and thought he was God.
Yeah.
And because of that, God took his magic halo away.
Yep.
And Jamshid is, I assume, dead by the time that this... No?
No, he's not.
Okay.
Jamshid is not dead. He is still ruler, but people aren't happy with him anymore. There's a lot of greed and corruption in Persia now. So, he ain't doing so good. So, before we begin the story, continuing it on, between the last time we read the Shahnameh and this time, I actually have a theory about Ahriman and how he kind of acts and works through the world. So, you know, Tahmurez, the demon binder, had this great war where he rounded up all the demons. He killed 2/3 of them. He enslaved the other 1/3. So I imagine that the number of minions that Ahriman has dwindled severely. He lost a lot of power thanks to Tahmurez. So I got this idea that what if he had to get sneakier in the ways that he fought against Ahura Mazda, and this is the point in time where he starts like directly whispering into the hearts of men. And you got to remember that before Jamshid started getting all high and mighty, he was a good king. He was really knowledgeable. He brought a lot of innovations and medicine and wealth to his people. So why would someone like that suddenly turn so greedy? I have this theory that Ahriman started kind of whispering to him, getting these thoughts in his head that got him to be, you know, to go to his downfall and to become this greedy, cruel king after a while.
Right. That's a good theory, but I would like to add something to that.
Okay.
So there was a lot of war before Jamshid's time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. And war tends to stick with people for a while. War is, regardless of what it's for, war is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
And really, war could be seen as a thing of Ahriman.
That is true.
So maybe that was part of phase 1 of his plan. You know, the fact that Ahura Mazda's people essentially exterminated all these demons was, in a way, part of his plan all along.
Maybe they're going to become the new demons now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as we know, anyone who lives in society, people can be awful. People can be absolutely cruel. And maybe that's just the way that Ahriman is kind of attacking now. That's his new forefront. Which is why we have to remember the good thoughts, the good words, and the good deeds so we can fight back. So, going back, we're going to continue our story, but not in Persia. We're going to go to the neighboring lands of the Arabs. And here we find a benevolent king by the name of Merdas. Merdas. And he's everything you would want in a ruler. He's really just and virtuous. He's benevolent towards his people. He shares his wealth throughout his kingdom.
Just a real swell guy.
Yeah. And also, Jamshid, take notes on this. He was humble before God. He knew his place. So he is a wonderful man. He has a son named Zahak, and his son is this handsome and clever guy, but, you know, he has his flaws. He's a little petty. He tends to be influenced easily by other people's opinions and thoughts. He doesn't really have his own ideas. And the biggest
teenager.
He is your typical teenager who is a little full of himself. One of the things that he loved to do more than anything was ride horses. He had a great number of Arabian horses. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Arabian horses in general.
So I'm not a horse guy, but I think Arabians are supposed to be like pretty high quality.
They're very high quality. They're some of the healthiest, strongest breeds that you can find out there.
A real speed horse. You see them like in the Kentucky Derby and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're not very big in size, but like they are very healthy horses.
Not a workhorse.
No, not at all. But even to this day, the Arabian horses are some of the most sought-after breeds. Zahak has all of these purebred Arabian horses, and he kind of rides them around like this way to parade his wealth and his status. But he never rode them into war, because he's not the aggressive type. He's a bit of a weenie. But, you know, his love of horses kind of earned him this nickname, Bivaras, which in an old Pahlavi language means 10,000 horses. He didn't actually have 10,000 horses.
What was that language?
Pahlavi.
Pahlavi.
It's, from my research, it is an old Persian language. It's not modern-day Farsi. It's kind of like an older version,
So
like Old English.
before the Empire made Farsi the standard,
Yeah.
it was just another language.
Kind of the way that, you know, we had Old English. Now we have modern-day English.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So you have this young man who's a little spoiled, and instead of really focusing on the duties of a royal, he spends more time riding horses and enjoying his youth and his wealth. He's harmless, but, you know, he's still pretty selfish. So, Iblis enters stage left. Any idea who Iblis might be? I'm going to give you a hint. You have met Iblis before.
Oh, Satan.
Mm-hmm. He is the Islamic, this is the Islamic name of the devil. So in a sense, this is Ahriman, pretty much. Since the story is taking place in the Arab lands, the name has changed. And so, you know, out of respect for the Arabic culture, we're going to refer to him as Iblis. But we are essentially talking about Ahriman, just so that everybody is aware. It's kind of the same all around.
Incidentally, also the name of a boss in a Sonic game.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Iblis is the name of a Sonic villain?
Yeah.
You're kidding me. Oh my god. Seriously?
It wasn't a very good game, so nobody would remember it but me.
Oh no. Okay, I was not expecting that when we sat down to do this podcast.
You would learn that?
That I was going to get a Sonic reference.
I think he goes by a couple different names in Arabic. Like, I think the actual word Satan does come from the Arabic word for
shaitan. Shaitan, yeah. Well, in Farsi we say shaitan. So, Arabic it would be, I don't know. There's so many different versions.
I don't know which one came from which.
Either way, Iblis is here. He sees this kid, and he kind of sees, I can use this. He could be a good tool for me. So he disguises himself as a human. And he approaches Prince Zahak and becomes friends with him.
Oh, I've seen Star Wars. I know where this is going.
Oh, showers him in compliments and talks up about what a great king he's going to be one day. And, you know, Zahak being this young kid, it really boosts his ego. And he starts listening more and more to what Iblis is saying. Kind of starts taking his counsel a little bit more. So, one day, Iblis tells him he knows many secrets about the world and the kingdom and that are only his to know. And he's willing to share this knowledge with Zahak if he promised to do something for him.
Oh?
Zahak, being an idiot, you know, he promises, okay, I'll do whatever you ask of me. Don't ever fall for this, guys. Figure out what they want from you before you say yes.
Yeah, nobody talks you up for free. Did I ever tell you the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Oh, God. So, I want you to guess what you think Iblis is going to ask Zahak to do.
Make a deal. Satan likes making deals.
He does like making deals. He's going to ask Zahak to do something pretty awful.
Challenge him to a fiddling contest.
No, Charlie Daniels. Iblis says that he sees a future where Zahak becomes a great king, far greater than his own father. He tells him it's a waste that he remains a prince. He's already in line for the throne, so for the sake of the kingdom and his own succession, he should have his father killed.
Ouch.
Mm-hmm.
That's a rough one.
Yep. Now, I don't know what you know about Zahak's character, but I want you to guess how Zahak responds to this.
Okay.
No, actually. No? As soon as Zahak's told to do this, he gets really upset, actually. He loves his father. His father has been good to him, has cared for his well-being, gave him all those nice Arabian horses, you know? So Zahak is like, is there another way for me to ascend the throne? But you gotta remember, Iblis has already been working this kid for a while, and he knows how to turn him. He's been boosting his ego and filling his head with these grand ideas of himself. So now he turns that against him. He says, Zahak, if you don't do this, if you don't see to the death of your father, then you are always going to live in your father's shadow. You're going to be inconsequential. You're going to be unimportant. And this fires up Zahak. And he's
you put a little bit of that Disney's Hades into that one. Look, kid, you're going to always be in your father's shadow. Always. All right? Okay, capiche?
So, you got to do this, kid. So Zahak finally's like, okay, I agree to the scheme, I'll do this. Zahak tells Iblis of this garden path that his father takes every morning before dawn on his way to prayer. And King Merdas, when he goes into the gardens, he goes alone. He doesn't ask for any guards or servants to be around him because this is kind of his time to pray to God and meditate and, seek wisdom within himself. So after pointing out the path to him, Iblis digs a deep pit and covered it with leaves and such. And in the morning, King Merdas walked through his garden path, and because it was so dark, he didn't see the pit, and he fell into it and broke his back.
Ow.
And this is how he died. He died in that pit. Iblis covers the hole with dirt, and that's the end of King Merdas. No one knows what happened to him. He just disappeared. Zahak takes the throne from that point. And almost from the beginning of his rule, he kind of proves that he's kind of ruthless and cruel. So Iblis gives him one final piece of advice before leaving. He told Zahak that because he had followed his directions and because he gave his heart to his words, he had gained power. And if Zahak continues to follow in his words and continues to take his advice, he will soon become the ruler of the 7 kingdoms, and that every beast and man was going to bow to him.
Even the cheetahs?
Even the cheetahs.
Wow.
You're still hung up on those cheetahs, man.
I like them.
So, Iblis leaves. Zahak gets comfortable in his palace as the new king, and one day, a young man comes to the palace and asks to work in the kitchen as a cook. And he makes these wonderful dishes, and Zahak's like, great, you're hired. And, okay, so this part of the Shahnameh gets really interesting. It says that before this, people ate a lot of vegetable-based dishes, and there actually weren't a lot of dishes made of animal meat.
Because everybody knew some animals as, like, friends, I bet.
You know what? That's a good point. I didn't think about that, because
I assume in this point, animals are still talking.
Still have a little bit more communication with people, yeah. That would make sense. But, I kind of thought that because they were wearing cheetah skins from the beginning, they must have been eating meat from the beginning.
That's a good point, too.
But apparently not. Apparently it was kind of unheard of to eat a lot of meat. You would eat eggs. Eggs were apparently okay. But actual meat was not a big thing. So what this chef started doing was he was like, I want to help Zahak to grow to be as strong as a lion. So I'm going to feed him off of the blood of other animals. That's how it's described in the Shahnameh. So, with every meal that Zahak got, he got stronger and stronger, and he is loving the flavors that are coming out of these dishes, and Zahak praises every meal. And finally, one day, he calls the cook to him, and he says, I am so pleased with your work. I'm going to grant you one wish, whatever you want. And the cook said, it's an honor to just work in your palace and to be in the presence of such a great king. I want nothing more than to just kiss you on both of your shoulders and lay my head there. And Zahak's like, I'm such a great guy. This is all he wants.
That's a little saucy.
It's supposed to be, a sign of
reverence,
yeah.
Respect.
Yeah. And so Zahak is like, yeah, go ahead. So here comes the chef, kisses him on both of his shoulders before vanishing.
That's not good.
It gets worse. From the spots where the cook had kissed him, 2 snakes spring out of his shoulders.
2 little snakes? Just on
big
his
snakes.
Big
I'd
snakes.
say they're fairly big snakes. So, do you have any guesses who the cook really was?
I'm going to guess his old friend Iblis.
It was his old friend Iblis coming back again. So, back to the panic that is the 2 frickin' snakes coming out of Zahak's shoulders. What's the first thing you would do if you had 2 snakes popping out of your shoulders?
Try to pull them off.
Pull them off? I'd start screaming.
Yeah.
Like, first
screaming
thing,
and pulling
what
off.
is going on?
Get off of me! What? Oh,
So he screams, he takes a sword, he tries to chop them off. Well, it doesn't work because they grow back. He tries pulling them off. He tries everything. He even calls in all these physicians and doctors from across the land. Is like, someone try and get these things off of me. They try so many things. Nothing gets rid of the snakes. And finally, this one physician approaches him and says to Zahak that instead of killing the snakes, he should let them live. And it says, you need to kill them slowly by giving them a diet that will kill them off. I suggest you feed each of them the brain of a man. And that's eventually going to kill them off.
Is this Satan again?
I wonder who else would give such a disgusting idea.
You know what would help? Brains.
It's Iblis again. Comes back and says, "This is how to solve this problem."
I like to think it's just a red man with horns wearing very bad disguises.
Oh, come on. He's very subtle. Gotta give him some credit.
Yes, I think you should defeat them brains.
And Zahak, kind of being the idiot and the cruel, stupid person that he is, he's like, yeah, I'll take that advice. And from that point on, he kills 2 men a day in order to feed the snakes. And from there, Zahak's descent into evil just continues. He just starts to study dark magic and mastering all these forms of sorcery, and he's becoming very powerful. So, yeah, he's not the smartest man ever, but he is powerful. He is dangerous, he's learning dark magic, and he has 2 giant snakes on his shoulders.
Yeah. That's a good recipe for a big bad boy.
He's a big bad boy at this point. Now that's all happening in the Arab lands. Let's go back to Persia. Jamshid's rule is falling apart badly. Factions of the kingdom are splitting off and claiming their own sovereigns, and word gets to some of these factions of this Arab king who is powerful and serpent-like. And so several of them are like, hey, he should come be our king. Look at how strong this guy is.
Look at how serpent-like he is. Akin to a serpent.
Akin to a serpent.
We like snakes.
So they go over there, they meet with him, and they beg him to come and be their new king. And both Arabs and Persians rallied behind him. And now it was actually really easy for Zahak to come into the capital city of Persia and take over. Now Jamshid runs away before Zahak ever reaches him. And in doing so, he surrenders everything to Zahak. His crown, his palaces, his riches, everything.
Dang, Jamshid.
He just took off.
People like this guy?
They used to like him until he started acting like a...
Look, I know you invented medicine and wine, but we're not so keen on the whole you being God thing.
Yeah, well,
we're gonna let this snake guy take control.
Snake guy seems to have
snake guy
the right
seems
idea.
Real powerful.
Let's just try something new.
Look, we know your dad rode around to Satan for most of his life.
We're tired of the same old, same old. We need to bring something new into
this guy is fresh.
So they let Zahak in. Jamshid runs away. So Zahak began his reign as the new king of Persia. And for 100 years, he searches for Jamshid. And he looks everywhere for him. Finally finds him on the outskirts of Persia, kind of near the Sea of China. And without even giving him a chance to defend himself or say anything at all, he just cuts him in half with a sword. And everyone kind of saw that, and they're like, ooh, I'm not so sure about the Zahak guy anymore.
That's a little... We weren't real big on Jamshid, but we didn't want him to go out like that.
Yeah, but it's too late. They gave him everything. So Zahak reigned in Persia for 1,000 years. So I'm going to guess, once again, it's a lot longer rule than normal living human beings. So I've got some theories for why he lived so long. But do you have any theories? Why did Zahak live for as long as he did? Rule for 1,000
because he had
years?
Magic and Satan on his side.
That was one theory. I also have a theory that when Jamshid ran away, he left his Jama Jam behind.
Oh, you think he was drinking from the holy cup?
I got the idea. I wonder if that's what happened.
I don't think that's what could have happened.
You don't think so? You think it's the necromancy? or
Probably.
the dark magic.
Yeah, the evil magic and the having Satan on your side deal. I think that... I don't think... That'd be like... I just picture the Jamajam as like a holy artifact of some sort.
That is true.
That's the way I choose to believe it.
You'd hate to see someone evil using it.
Yeah, if they did use it, I feel like it would have the opposite effect.
You'd
like
want
a
it to,
vampire
at
in
least.
holy water, you know?
Yeah. We'll have to leave that up to guesswork and whatnot.
Let us know what your theories are in the comments.
Yeah, do you guys think that it was dark magic, or is he able to use the Jama Jam, or is he allergic to it because he's so evil?
Because he's so full of malice.
Like garlic to vampires. Anyways, Zahak is ruling for 1,000 years, like we said, and people who were wise to his evil ways, they hid the moment he became king. But there was a lot of people who kind of just let him do what he wanted. Also,
okay, Mr. Snake Man.
Like, you are way too scary. We're going to back up. We're not dealing with this. In the palace that once belonged to Jamshid, Zahak's men found Jamshid's 2 sisters, Shahnameh and Arnavaz.
Oh, no.
And Zahak decided he was going to keep them by his side as prizes of his victory. And to further humiliate the family line of the first Persian kings, he enchanted their minds and turned them to wickedness through witchcraft. He taught them dark magic and necromancy, and basically they became his concubines.
Oh.
Yeah.
This guy's gross.
He's pretty gross, yeah. And at this point, Zahak knows nothing outside of pillaging and killing and destroying, so that's all that he teaches to them as well. And the sisters of Jamshid were not the only spoils of war. From the first day that Zahak became king, he did what he'd been doing at home as well. He would order 2 young men to be killed and their brains to be fed to his shoulder snakes. And I don't know what else to call them, man.
It's my prescription.
Don't worry, guys. You're helping your king.
Yes.
Yeah, so people are upset about it, but, they're too scared to do anything. So they allowed him to be put in power. They gave him their armies. There's no retaliating when he comes for their sons and their brothers. However, there were 2 men who saw this happening to people, and they're like, we've got to do something. We've got to stop this somehow. Their names were Armayel and Garmayel. And these 2 kind of decided their plan was going to be, okay, we're going to work really hard and become cooks, skilled enough to join the royal kitchen. So they practiced their craft until the time was right, and they presented themselves to the palace. And not long after they were hired, they were working in the kitchens, and 2 young men were thrown before them by the guards and said, hey, kill these boys and get their brains to serve to the king. And this is where they were just, these men were really filled with anger and pain at what they had to do. They looked at these 2 boys. They had to choose one. They had to kill one of them. Otherwise, the ruse wasn't going to work. They killed one man. They let the other one go. They gave him provisions and food, and they said, to everyone here, you're dead. You need to get out. You need to run to the mountains. Don't tell anyone your name. Start a new life there. Don't look back. And so what they did was then they would take sheep's brains, and they mixed it with the other man's brains, and so that it looked like they had the brains of 2 men, and fed that to the snakes instead.
Ooh.
So, they had I can't imagine what that was like. You had to choose between these 2 young men who was going to live and who was going to die.
Did they have to do it more than once?
They did this every night.
Oh.
They became the cooks that presented the meal to the snakes every night. So every night they had to choose one man to kill and one man to let
keep.
one to let free. But it was the best they could do. They were normal men with no powers. This was the only way they knew to stop him. To stop some of the cruelty.
Stop some of the flow of power.
Yeah, and they did this for a long time. The Shahnameh says nothing about them getting caught at all. So it seems like they did this for a long time. And actually it continues to say that the men who were able to escape became the foundation of the Kurds, who are a group of people who have always traveled and never stay in one land. So I always found that was kind of interesting, that this was the origins of the Kurds.
The Kurdish people.
Yeah. It was all the people that Armayel and Garmayel saved. It does say that later on, as like more and more men were being saved, they would send them out with like sheep and other animals. Be like, here, take these with you so that you can have herds and whatnot wherever you're going.
They all found each other out in the mountains and started a little community.
I like to think that they did, yeah. I mean,
Makes sense.
They were saving men for years and years and years. So, like, you know, that's 30 men a month. So, he did pretty good. Zahak was never made aware of the escapes. So, to the people, though, they still think he's taking 2 of our men and killing them every day. They don't know that, no, it's only half of that now. Another thing that Zahak would do, he wouldn't just take their young men to feed as snakes. This is going to get kind of gross, but if he finds out that one of his soldiers has a beautiful daughter at home, he would claim that that soldier has been consorting with demons. He'd have that soldier killed, and then he'd bring the daughter into his court as a slave. Yeah, this guy's pretty gross.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I guess
Yeah, he holds to no religion. He doesn't follow any laws but the ones that benefit him. And again, people are too scared to stand against him. And this is what life is like in the Persian Empire for 1,000 years.
What?
This goes on for 1,000 years of his rule. Yeah.
Are there any Persians left?
There must be.
If he's got to take 2 every day?
2 every day, and then all the pretty girls are being taken to the palace, you know. So I'm sure a lot of them are in hiding and whatnot, too.
Yeah.
So, but this is all just the worst. And one night, Zahak is asleep in his chambers with Arnavaz, and he wakes up screaming so loudly that the palace is shaking from it. And Arnavaz asks him what's wrong, what's going on, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to say anything. So she tries to calm him down and says, listen, you're in your own home. You're surrounded by guards and servants. You're the ruler of 7 kingdoms. Whatever frightened you to make you scream to the core of your soul, I wish you would tell me so that I could help. And finally, he says, okay, I had a nightmare. There are 3 warriors that came to the palace, and one of them, the youngest of the 3, he was really tall. They describe him as being tall as a cypress, which is a kind of
tree. That's, yeah.
Well, it's a saying that they use a lot in the Shahnameh. If someone's like really tall and robust, I suppose, they are tall as a cypress. So he says 3 warriors came to the palace. One of them, the youngest of the 3, tall as a cypress, is holding an ox-headed mace, and he has the halo of divinity around him. This young man attacked Zahak with the mace, bound him up tightly, and dragged him away to be sealed inside of a mountain in the dream. And it felt so real to Zahak that he woke up screaming in fear. So Arnavaz counsels him to, hey, you should go seek the wisdom of the soothsayers and the sages in the palace. And so Zahak gathers them all the next day, and he gives them all the details of his dream. And he says, tell me what it predicted. Tell me what this says is going to happen. And they all knew what it meant, but they were all too scared to tell him, because if any of them actually said what was prophesized in the dream to his face, yes. So they didn't say anything for 3 days. For 3 days, they're like, oh, you tell them.
I need to consult the star charts about this. It's going to take a little while.
Yeah, Zahak has no patience for that. He eventually tells them, you either get strung up or you tell me what it is. So one of the wise men, named Zahak, he steps forward and he says, you need to accept that no one will live forever, that everyone's death will come to them one day. It's the fate of everyone here. You had a good 1,000, man. This dream is a prediction of your death by the hands of a boy named Feridun.
Feridun.
Yeah. He has not been born yet, but he is destined to bring about your end. Zahak is terrified and he's confused by this, and he asks, why would anyone wish him harm and how anyone could hate him this badly?
I'm not that bad.
It's like, come on, man. You're making a list of reasons by the hour. But Zahak replies that Zahak is destined to kill Feridun's father, and that's going to make him seek vengeance. And then on top of that, he's also going to slay a cow who helps breastfeed the boy as an infant, and he's also going to hate Zahak even more for that. And Zahak is hit with such shock from all these revelations that he faints. And Zahak says, this is the time for me to skedaddle. And he boots out of there. He is gone. They don't see him after that.
Bye, guys.
There's like a Zahak-shaped dust cloud from where he looks. So by the time Zahak comes to, he's gone. And Zahak says, I ain't wasting any time. From this point, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try and find this kid and stop all this from happening. Because, we can all stop prophecies.
Right.
By enacting them.
I guess Zahak in that 1,000 years didn't read like any revenge story ever.
I guess not. You know what? These are probably the first revenge stories of our time.
Yeah.
We, in this day and age, have enough of them that if a prophecy happens, we need to just accept that it's happening and not try to stop it.
Don't try and kill the kid because he's just going to get angrier.
Pretty much. If you are destined to kill this guy's cow and his father, you just need to accept that it's going to happen.
Yeah. Maybe try and reform yourself a little. But what are we kidding? This is like a
Zahak
super
is
villain.
Stupid. He's not going to do that. He's going to try and go out there and take this kid down before it's too late. I am 2 snakes. But this is actually where we're going to stop. We're going to do a 2-parter for this story because the story is kind of long.
Oh, wow.
So we're actually going to stop here where Zahak is out searching for Feridun, and we're going to pick up Feridun's story on our next episode.
Next time
on the Shahnameh. Will Zahak find Feridun? Will Feridun be able to escape and become the prophesized king? Tune in next time.
I guess I'll have to find out next week.
Want to keep up with us? You can follow us on Twitter at MazanderCast. That's MazanderCast. We will announce the next episode through our Twitter, so spread the word.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions on current and future episodes. If there are any topics you'd like us to cover or stories you want to share with us, then email us at mazandercast@gmail.com. Same spelling as our Twitter handle.
Special thanks to Dr. Lynn for our cover art. Check out more of her work at LorraineLynn.com. That's LorraineLIN.com.
We thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We hope you'll stick around for more in the future.
As always, we hope you'll have good thoughts,
Good words.
and good deeds.
Hodafez!